Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. If you're new here, welcome. And if you've been with us before, welcome back. We are the Fifth Meeple, a podcast where five diverse friends offer our takes on the latest and hottest games to hit our table. I'm your host, Emerson, the wild card, and joining me at the table today is the Goofy Noob.
Hey guys, it's Daniela. What's up?
The Collector.
Hey, this is David. Can I buy that game from you?
The Underdog.
Hey, it's Emily.
And the Intellectual Introvert.
Hi, everybody. It's Chris.
Today's episode is centered around auctioning. The two games in our lineup today will be Modern Art, where we are fine art brokers that take turns to buy and sell different paintings, and Raw, where we purchase tiles with our bidding tiles for various set collections to impress the Egyptian kings. After that, as always, we'll face them off against each other in our head-to-head Battle of the Funnest and see which one will be victorious. Will it be the millions you just sold and earned, or the Egyptian goddess Isis? But before we get into any of that, David, what is this week's topic question?
Yeah, so today we're talking about some auction games and some bidding games. So the topic for today that I want to bring to the table is, where do you buy board games from and for what value, right? So a lot of times when we're playing these auction games, it's all about getting the most you can for the value you get. But as we know as board gamers, that's not always the case as far as, you know, do you support your local board game store that might be selling stuff for more than Amazon? You know, we talk a lot on here about Amazon pricing when we do our little price segment, and that's just because, you know, we don't know where you're listening from, but, you know, almost everybody can get onto Amazon and find the game, and that's kind of what we want to do. But, you know, I know me personally, I like to support a lot of the local board game stores, and if you ever compare the prices, sometimes they're a little bit more if you go to your local place down the street than they are on Amazon. That's if you can find a board game store down the street, so hopefully you can, because they're hopefully starting to pop up a little bit more as the hobby's growing. But, you know, where do you go, I guess, to buy that? And, you know, just price, is that your ultimate factor when it comes down to it? If you know you can get it cheaper somewhere else online, or is it like, hey, I'd rather support this local store that's in my community and I'm paying more and I know I'm paying more? Like, how do you, or what do you think about that topic? Because I know it's a hot topic for a lot of people that are in the board gaming hobby.
I'm going to Amazon every time. I'm all in for a competitive price, and Amazon will always have the competitive price. I understand the social aspect of going to the game store and talking to other gamers, like, hey, have you tried this yet? What'd you think? I'm not a social person, so I'm not going to miss that. I'm just going to go online and start clicking stuff.
Yeah, I'm the complete opposite. If I don't have to buy from Amazon, I'm not going to buy it from Amazon. And I didn't realize that you were going to say Amazon.
I love Amazon.
Do you need a ride home?
Yeah, I'm going to need a ride home. Thank you. No, I think most of the time you can actually find a better deal that's not on Amazon, like on Facebook Marketplace even. I think I tend to go to Facebook Marketplace just because of the fact that I cannot drive. So I can't drive myself to the local game store, but I can very well at the tips of my fingers browse on Facebook Marketplace and see, hey, that looks like a good deal. And then, you know, try and make a deal with somebody. But I know that we've also talked about if it's on Amazon, it probably doesn't hold its value as much.
Well, you don't know, like maybe not right now.
Maybe not right now, but I know, David, you've said that, you know, if it's just everywhere, it's at your Target, your Barnes & Noble, Amazon, it's probably not, at least from a collector's perspective, it's probably not worth the buy.
Correct. I mean, there are some games, though, when it comes to Amazon that they're listed at a very high price because they are hard to get. So you're going to find some weird pricing sometimes where you might walk into a board game store and you're like, hey, it's $80 here, and you go online and somebody's trying to scalp it for $120. So you will find that. I'm talking, yeah, when you say that, it's just like more mass produced, right? So it's getting really to the masses at that point. You know, I think it's a very hard topic for me. I say that, yes, I do buy some games off Amazon, and I do buy a lot of games from my local board game stores that I like to support. You know, I'm somewhere down the middle of that road. I know that might not be a popular thing to say in the board gaming hobby, but, you know, sometimes it does come down to, hey, this is a really good deal, you know, and, you know, I want to take advantage of it. Or sometimes I just need it right away, and I don't want to drive 45 minutes, you know, to the store that has it. You know, it's easier for me just to hit a button, especially since me and my wife just had kids. You know, it's just sometimes I can't go out as much as I would like to go support that. But sometimes it's a hard decision. I mean, if you're at a board gaming store and you're looking, you know, just to see what the ratings are, you know, if Amazon pops up there and it's like $50 on Amazon and you're looking at a $65 price tag at the store, I think sometimes that's a really hard decision for people. You know, at least for me, it's a really hard decision sometimes when I'm looking at it. If it's only maybe like $5 more, easy. I'll go buy it local. Sometimes when it gets to, $15-20 more than what I can buy, not necessarily from Amazon, but from another online retailer like Game Nerds or something like that, I think it becomes hard. And so that's why, I'm interested to hear what Chris and Danielle have to say about this topic too, because I think it is an ongoing conversation that we're having right now in the industry, and something that I think is, has a variety of opinions out there.
Yeah, so when you first asked the question, I immediately thought, okay, my answer is Amazon. And then I started thinking, well, where do I actually get my games? And I think it depends on how badly I want it, how big the price difference is, but also maybe what's going on. And so I do buy probably more from Amazon than elsewhere, but anytime I'm at Walmart now, they've got a much bigger game selection. I'm going down there, but I'm really just, okay, do they have anything on sale that's any good? But then also from the standpoint of local game stores, we're going to talk about Modern Art today. I got that at a local store. I'll give a shout out to Shuffler's Den. They had the game that I was looking for. It was a decent price. It's near where I work. By golly, I'm going to support them, right? We went to a produce spiel earlier this year. It was held at Recess out near Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And so I bought a couple of games from them that day because, hey, you hosted us. You gave us a place. I'll give it back. And then I also find myself when I'm going to Half Price Books or I'm driving by a thrift store, I'm stopping in there and looking to see, well, I haven't found that gem yet, but I'm still looking for it at the thrift store. So I guess it's a combination, more Amazon than anything, but I'm trying to spread it around a little bit.
Yeah, and for me, I'm not out there looking for specific games at this point just because I'm new. I'm really trying to get my feet wet and see a lot of games that I do like. But so, if I'm going out to Recess or something, it's definitely with David or something that I'm headed out to a store like that. And like you said, David, there are more stores that are popping up in the area. I think there's some in Menor, maybe in Willoughby, and some other areas too that have started to, surface, which will be really cool to go to and see what they're kind of doing over there. For me, it's pretty much straight Half Price Books at this point because I was there the other day and I'm always buying books. I buy more books. That's what I'm there for. But I do always take a gander in that little area that they have. And I did buy Sequence and I bought Citadels the other day because they were really good prices. And I knew I could take them and play them with lots of people. And so that's kind of like what my goal is right now, to do that kind of stuff. And also with Barnes & Noble, I didn't even realize they had a game section until you said something, I think last Christmas about it. So that's interesting. And I don't stop in Barnes too much. I really like the store, but it'll be a new place I start to hit, especially around the Christmas season. Because I think, was it Black Friday or so? One time you were in there, David, and you were like, "Oh my gosh, there's so much on sale right now."
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and to kind of go along with what Emerson's saying, I collect games. If you know, that's my nickname on this show here. But I recently started getting into, a couple of years back, I would say I buy most of my games secondhand now. I used to never do that. I used to like to buy new. Not open, stuff like that. But I think the more I got into the hobby of just, exploring different games and stuff, I noticed that there's a lot of other people collecting board games that are just sitting on their shelves of shame. And so, and so the Facebook marketplace or like BGG online, it's a great way to help somebody else out by, getting something off of their shelf, but yet at the same time, experiencing that game at a cheaper cost. So, I will say I'm a big supporter now of the secondhand market as well too. I think it's very fluid and it's a way to get your hands on a lot of good stuff that it just doesn't hit for other people. We all have different tastes. You might buy something thinking, hey, this is going to hit for me, and it just doesn't. It's great to know that somebody else could enjoy the game that maybe has that taste for that game, and you can get some money back to buy another game that you would like to buy. So I like to support that market as well. So yeah, there's a lot more dynamic markets though for board gaming than there used to be. So yeah, it's exciting. Thanks for your opinions on all that.
Hey everyone, Daniela here. Before we get started, we'd like to ask that you take a second to hit the subscribe button so you never miss a show. As we look to grow this channel and community, we'd really enjoy the opportunity to engage with you, the listener. Please leave us any feedback you feel would be helpful to us and share this episode to help grow our channel. Lastly, we'd love for you to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Fifth Meeple, where you can vote in our weekly polls, get in our discussions, and see what we're playing. We also have a new BGG guild, which is titled the Fifth Meeple, and our number there is 4269. You can also visit our website at fifthmeeple.com or just email us directly at thefifthmeeple@gmail.com. And as always, we thank you so much for your support. We hope you enjoy this episode of The Fifth Meeple.
Modern Art places you in the role of a fine art broker, buying and selling paintings for millions of dollars as you chase the hottest artists and try not to go broke in the process. The game takes place over 4 rounds. Each player has a hand of cards showing paintings by one of 5 different artists. Players take turns auctioning off one of the paintings from their hand, with the type of auction determined based on the specific painting being sold. There are 5 different types of auction. There's an open auction where players bid and rebid until no one wants to increase the price. A one-offer auction where players get a single chance in turn order to outbid their opponents. A hidden auction where players bid secretly and the highest bid takes it. A fixed price auction where the seller sets the price and the first player to meet the price buys it. And a double auction where 2 paintings are sold at the same time. The round continues until the 5th painting of one of the painters is offered for sale. At that point, the round ends and prices are set, with the value of the paintings depending on how many of a painter's works were sold that round. A painting's value is increased if a painter was popular in a previous round as well. But if a painter has fallen out of favor and was not one of the top 3 sellers in the current round, their paintings are worth absolutely nothing, regardless of their past popularity. After 4 rounds, the player who has amassed the most money wins the game, and it's back to the drawing board for everyone else. Modern Art was designed by Rainer Knizia and was first published in 1992.
Thank you, Chris. With this game, Modern Art, there is a huge social aspect to this game. And I think I'm just going to throw it out there. One of my best moments of this game is trying to sell your painting. Coming up with a fun, quirky name for it, describing it, and the way that you interpret it. I think I can say with confidence that everyone at this table agrees with that.
Yeah, but is that part of the game, or did we just take it off and do that?
No, I think that's just how many people would play it, I would assume.
Okay.
I mean, trying to convince the rest of the table to buy your crappy painting. Yeah, it's fun.
Yes. I think if you didn't do that, the game could get a little bit dry, but
yeah.
I agree. I wrote that down as the favorite part for me of the game, is just trying to come up with goofy names for our paintings, which they've got names on them.
Yeah.
We come up with our own, but then trying to convince everybody, look, this painting's really awesome, and here's why you might need it. I think that's fun.
Yeah, I think that's a special flavor for our group here that we do that. Last time we played, not the previous time, but the first time we played, we kind of just went off on a lot of the paintings and just the different things that were on there, and we were just super goofy. And then we did that again this time. And I would be interested though to know, do other people play it like that, or are we just trying to make
weird.
really good thing of a game that had boring names?
Well, Daniela, what was one of the paintings that you had?
Well, that would have been by, Sigrid Thaler. And no, it wasn't. It was the yellow one. So, Raphael
Silveira.
That man. Him. Was Whippy Dip head. And there was more to it. He had a Whippy Dip head. We found out later that he had a brother. He had a strawberry on his head. It was just, we went off on it. And so
that was a great moment when Whippy Dip's brother came
yes,
out. We didn't even know he was in there.
Because I was like, I know I sold this. I looked at the cards that we had put back from another round, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't do the right cards. And then I was like, his brother.
And to kind of go along with what Daniela was saying, do other people do this? One of my favorite games in college we used to play is called Masterpiece. I own a bunch of copies. It's a very kind of really simple game. You guys probably wouldn't like it, but again, you have paintings and you're selling them. And there's this one painting that would always come up, and it would look like one of our professors, and it would be like Spaldo, and it didn't matter if it was worth anything or not. Everybody would bid like crazy to own Spaldo. And so I do think that is definitely a fun thing when you can get with a group and just have fun with the names of the paintings and why you should buy them, regardless of sometimes the value. It just makes for a good time.
I was going to say, I think, at least, I don't know, this is what I felt, is that if you didn't sell your painting correctly, no one was going to, you weren't going to get as much money. So you are kind of almost in that broker's position where you really are trying to advertise this painting and get everyone else at the table interested in this painting. I know for me, I had Silveira's paintings for a double auction. So I had what's actually called, I looked it up, it was Vanitos and Ungernellamente. And so both of those are called Vanity and A Trip in the Mind. But really, what I called it was Eyes Up Here and Finding My Way Home, because I had no idea what it actually was. But I think it's right. So the Eyes Up Here, for those of you who are listening, it's a lady in a very, very short red dress, and her head just has these eyeballs sprouting out of her head, almost like Medusa. But you get the you're not looking in the right spot. You're looking at a woman. She goes, "Hey, eyes up here." So I thought that was clever, but I don't know. Anybody else at the table remember some of their fun paintings? I know, David, you had one where you said like my cousins.
Yeah, I did have a lot of those. They looked Asian, so of course they're my cousins. You feel me?
I think I had a double auction where I had one that was 2 Asian girls, and then I had another one that was 2 Asian older women. And so it was, here's 2. I forget what I called them, but ultimately it was 20 years later was the name of the
Yeah, I
second
remember
painting.
that,
So
yeah.
I thought it was pretty funny how that worked out too.
Oh yeah.
What about you, Emily?
I can't remember.
You can't remember?
You had
Yeah, I
one
was gonna
called
say
the
you-
rabbit with the
You
what was
tend to do a very good job with those.
the rabbit with the strawberry.
Happy Bunny?
Yeah, something. And
Yeah.
you're like, do you see
Hungry
that?
Bunny, maybe?
Yeah,
Did
you
you
called
see
it.
it?
Yeah, you were like Hungry Bunny, and you're like, if you see the bunny, you see the bunny, but no one could find the bunny.
Nobody could find the bunny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not only do we name the paintings, I think like the different art collections that we were from, the different museums. Like I think Emily was at the French one, and she would go wee wee all the time, and just like try to get us to bid up because she's
Oui, oui,
French.
bonjour.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just great that everybody was not only doing the paintings but taking the character of their museums as well, and kind of what they would do. So it was pretty fun.
I think at one point you said "wee wee gracias" or something.
Yeah. That might have happened.
I think overall too that those are my best moments, like probably from the game, is just the overall camaraderie and we try to make the best of it.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm playing the game, I really like, the object of the game is to end the game with the most money. But when I'm playing this game, I don't give a rat's ass about how much money I have. I'm just there for the fun of it, right?
Look, if you put in the hard work coming up with a name and selling it to me, I'm going to buy it, whether it's going to be worth anything or not. I had so many paintings that I just took a gamble on, and I was like, okay, well, there's 3 of this artist out already. This might be worth something. And I like the picture, but then it'll be worth nothing at the end, but that's still fun.
Yeah, so this game does have a gambling aspect to it. Throughout the different rounds or phases, depending on how much each artist sold for, the next round that artist's paintings are worth X amount, so they may increase or decrease in value throughout the round. So there is a bit of a gamble in terms of, okay, do I want to bid a little bit extra money on this just to get it in my pool, and then hopefully it'll be worth, something more, or it might turn on you and, hey, you're out of that money now. So what were people's thoughts about that and the gambling aspect of this game?
It's also fun that you can kind of increase the value of your own paintings. So let's say one specific artist comes out and you're looking in your hand, you're like, well, I have 3 of those in my hand, and if I can throw these out all this round, I can up the value of this painting, so I'm going to buy that one. But then like a red one comes out, and then other people are going to try not to throw that one out to try to make your painting less valuable. So there is some control you have a little bit, but then you kind of got to look around the table and see what other people are doing too.
I think there is a little bit of control depending on the auction that you choose. But before we move on to that, did anybody have any feelings about how you felt with the gambling aspect of this game?
I don't think I understood it quite well because I did terrible this last time we played. Like I think I ended with like $90 and everybody else was in the hundreds. I think I was trying to throw certain paintings that weren't worth as much out there, just to try and flip the board that had all the different artists on it to try and get more out there to raise prices.
I mean, I like the gambling aspect of the game. To me, that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it interesting. It helps to build the tension too. Sometimes I think in one of the rounds, I think you have to win 5, right? 5 paintings, Chris, to put out there.
Well, the 5th painting has to be offered.
Yeah.
Chris wouldn't know. He didn't win any paintings.
Yeah.
I won one.
So when somebody puts the 5th painting of the same color, the round automatically ends. And so, there's a lot of tension sometimes that can build up. I think, one of the rounds, 2 of the colors had 4 maybe already to start. And then we started another color and we were all like, oh, there's no way. And then, I think 3 players in a row, we just kept putting it out there to keep building it. And, and so it didn't score. I think that's the one Daniela really got creamed on, but she helped me out. So I appreciate Daniela.
Yeah, it was Rivera.
But to me, that's fun because I think, you have to kind of guess what your opponent might do too. Like, are they going to try to end it because they have some good stuff, or are they going to keep letting the ball roll to maybe get in better position with, the second highest painting, the second artist, and try to play for more points. So I think that was fun for me.
So you like the gambling aspect, but you've also never found a craps table that you walked away from, right? So you are a gambler. I'm not a gambler, and so I don't tend to play that way, and I think it hurts me, but maybe it helps me too, because that did have a big impact, Danielle, on your last game where you bought 2 paintings at a decent price, and they were worth nothing at the end. And that's just devastating.
Yeah, I'm not a gambler either, so I probably don't understand the...
It's not gambling if you win.
Okay. That's
It's only gambling when you lose.
There's your public service
Right. So
announcement.
I lost, so I don't understand it.
Yeah, exactly.
The opinions of David are not the opinions of the Fifth Meeple.
I think with this game and any bidding game, there's always that, whether it's between two people or multiple people at the table, there's always that bidding tension. So you may try to cause the other person to spend more money than what they would hope for. And you'll kind of see that shine through with the other game that we'll be talking about in this episode. But sometimes I did find myself, going up against Emily, let's say, because Emily's just always 9 times out of 10 going to try and outbid somebody. So I'm just going to keep throwing numbers out there so that she's spending more money, which kind of worked in my favor. But you ended up still winning the game.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. So
yeah, and for me, like I'm looking at Emily going, how does she still have money?
Yeah.
Like I kept thinking, like I bought a couple things, and again, they weren't necessarily worth that much. So I wasn't having any return on my paintings, but I don't know. There was a point I'm like, where's all her money? Like I don't know, because I was just devastated.
I think there was a time too when you had almost none, but then your paintings kind of paid off and gave you that money to then go start manipulating again.
Yeah. And I was looking at the scoreboard, the score tracking board, to see like, okay, if I get this artist up to the top this round, they were in the top last round too. So that's going to be like a double payout. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of looking at that as well, so I could get a bigger payout for my my paintings. I know at one point I bet a lot of money. I paid a lot of money for a painting, and then I'm digging through all my money, and I'm like, these are all ones. Do I have enough money?
Oh yeah, you bought a painting from
I'm
me,
like,
and you said, "Oh wait, do I even have enough?"
But yeah, I did.
Typical French. No,
Yeah.
just
Oui.
Did anybody have a favorite auction type?
Open. I think I like the open when we're all just calling out numbers, and there wasn't much regiment to it.
Yeah, and the 2-for-1 I thought we played interesting this last time too. Can't really say why it was interesting, but I think we all kind of jumped on that, really played that up. And I think the tough one was where you're just starting at a bid and going around because you're like, dang it, I didn't expect that to happen.
that's my favorite one. The
Which
you
one?
described.
The one offer?
Yeah,
or-
the one offer.
One-time bid, yeah.
Yeah, because it's a lot of. I think there's a lot that goes into that number, and then because the person at the end, they can outbid everybody else, and I think that's what makes it fun. So, I like going last. Just kind of like if you gamble or play poker or anything, you like to be the one to go last.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I think the one-time offer was my favorite one to do if I wanted to manipulate paintings or manipulate my hand. I would just throw that one out there just because it was in my hand and it worked out. And then that way, let's say Thaler's paintings were going to be, worth the most. I have a Thaler one-time offer in my hand. I'm going to play it and then hopefully outbid everybody and have enough money to, potentially get that in my pool.
Yeah, I thought the hardest one to me was like the fixed price one, because I don't know, for you guys, it was like if I set it too high, nobody's going to buy it, and then I'm going to have to buy it for that price.
Yeah.
But if I set it too low, then somebody's just going to get a great deal. So I always felt those ones were the trickiest to see, how do I price this right where I'd be happy if somebody bought it, but if it comes back to me, I'm still happy with, my purchase, and trying to figure out what's going to happen on that one.
Yeah, and probably the timing for that. When is the right time to play
Yes.
that so that you can maybe manipulate it better? Which I thought manipulating the market to me was the best part of it. And I don't know that I've figured it out yet. I'm not sure that I won one other than maybe when we played at Origins, and only 3 players. But it's easy to look at this game and say, okay, there's really not much to it. And then you play and you realize there's just tons and tons to it if you can figure it out. And trying to manipulate that market, I think, is really fascinating. I also think we play at 5 players around this table. And to me, at least, it's much harder to manipulate the market at 5 players because you're not getting another painting to put out there for 5 more turns. And there's a lot that can happen. And you may be trying to manipulate it one way, and then it gets back to you if you get another turn. And you're like, okay, that didn't work out at all. I gotta start over, which again is just really, really fascinating to me.
I mean, I agree with Chris. I mean, I think because it's a 5-player game, a lot can happen before it gets back to you. And so in some ways, not only are you selling your painting, you're trying to sell the next 2 people and being like, hey, come on, push orange. Here's an orange. Let's get the orange market going. You're kind of throwing different clues out there to see if you can get allies across the table. Sometimes I'll look at Emily or look at Emerson. And I'm like, hey, we got red. Let's keep going with red, and we can win the market back. Maybe because Chris has 3 yellow paintings in front of him, and we can still screw him over a little bit for getting us that betrayal. But anyways, it's a good time.
I would also say the wooden gavel. So some versions have it, some versions don't. I happen to like the wooden gavel. and being able to actually bang it on the table.
It's pretty dinky compared to the. I mean, after you play Raw, that gavel's nothing.
So let's move into our frustrations.
Well, one thing I think we can all agree on though is the player screens
Yes.
they're awful, right? They're flimsy, they're too small, and so they don't work. I think Emerson, yours fell over 3 times in a row at one point.
Never fails.
Yeah.
And so for those who don't know, the reason why it's so important is because money is secret in this game. So having your player shield fall over is pretty great. So
I'm just clumsy. Like growing up as a kid, I broke so many things in the house just from flailing my arms around, not knowing how long my arms are, and same thing still happens, whatever. Yeah. If you play with me, you're going to hear, oh, don't look.
It's
You
okay.
didn't see that.
We
You didn't
already
see
know
that.
you don't have any money.
Hey, I came in second place, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think Emily and I talked about this. So, Emily, you have one more frustration because you're going to align with me on this. Is the art. The art
Yes.
is difficult to, even though we had fun with it and it was goofy and it's weird and it's, it's a little more fun to sell. I think Emily and I would prefer some of the classics, a whole set deck of, Renoir and Van Gogh and things like that. Those are much easier to sell. I think we would also pick our favorites out of those and be like, oh, I really want that one this time, right? I mean, I think at one point Chris said, oh, here's the main modern art. That's the cover of the thing. And so was trying to sell that painting. But I'm sorry, I'm just not a fan of the artwork.
Well-
It's a little goofy, a little weird, a little out there. I'm not into modern
There
art.
are different versions of
I
this
know.
game.
Yeah, because I remember saying during the game, I was like, they could have had Picassos on these and they chose these artists. And then Chris was like, oh, well, there's different versions you can get.
Yeah, but there's different versions of, I think, the modern art game. There is a classic art game, I think also by Reiner Knizia, but it's a different game. So it's not the same game with
okay.
different art. But there's a Korean version in that version. I think some of them have different art. But I mean, it is what it is. I don't like the art either. I don't tend to be a big modern art person, but they do contribute to some of our, like, whatever it was, flippity top or whatever your guy was.
Whippy dip.
Whippy dip. There you go. So it does at least
that's a
contribute to
t-shirt
that.
line coming out
Yeah.
soon.
It's a jingle. Whippy dip.
I mean, for me, one of my frustrations with this game was the double auction mechanism. Specifically, if you never got one of those cards in the game are really powerful because basically you could have 3 paintings of one color on the table. And if somebody decides that they have the power and they have the same color and they could do a double auction, they can immediately end it. And so it's very sudden, especially in a 5-player game. It could shock the market. I think Chris did it on his very last one. He ended it, so there only 2 paintings got paid out because we actually never sold another color for the third one to actually get paid. And so, to me, I played this game without ever having one, and it's a really frustrating experience because you feel that other people kind of have like wild cards and you don't have one. And so, I think I could see how that's frustrating. I compare it if any of you guys ever play Sequence. It's a really easy game. My family likes to play it, especially around the holidays. But basically, you get a jack, it's a wild. But, if you're playing that game and you never get a jack, it's like that same feeling that it's like, well, if I got all the jacks, then I would win too. And I'm not saying it's that as powerful as that, but there is this feeling that I think that cards may be a little bit more overpowered than the rest of the cards, especially when it comes to how rounds end and how that timing works if you never ever see one. I think that could be a frustrating thing. I know Daniela never saw one and she was frustrated.
Yeah, definitely didn't. And I don't think I then maximized on some stuff. But again, the whole gambling aspect is different, new for me. So I got to play it better because you're not guaranteed those.
I think I had them 4 different times throughout the game.
You stole mine.
Yeah, you had a
did.
lot.
You
I
had-
knew.
Yeah, it just wasn't an even deal.
Yeah.
There is a variant out there to try to, because people talk about exactly what we just talked about there, where, hey, you at the beginning of the game, you deal out the times 2s to make sure there's at least a semi-even amount and everybody gets at least a couple to try to kind of manage that potential.
Yeah, because it can still be random by color. You don't know what color people have,
Right.
but as yeah, because it makes it a
they
little
have.
bit more fair, especially if everybody knows how to play an auction game. I think, yeah. So I think that's the other frustration I would have is if I was somebody new and I didn't know how to play auction games. Like, I think this one would be a little bit tough, maybe a little bit challenging for a new player to come in and play with a more experienced group of players. I don't always know if it's on a fair footing. Sometimes I think you could play a game at any kind of level and somebody can come in and kind of do okay. But I think in this game, if you played with more experienced players that know how to play this game versus, just somebody that had, no clue, they're stepping in, they're kind of a newbie. I think in this kind of game, kind of like I say with like Hearts or any kind of classic card game, it's very hard for that person because normally they're going to get creamed.
I think this game is more not of a gateway game, but I think this game is an easier teach than Raw,
For sure.
though.
It's an easier teach. It might be harder to grasp, though.
Yes.
Do you
As far as how to actually manipulate
The market.
things, and and again, maybe it's just different people, different minds. But I find it as an interesting challenge to say, well, how can I really impact this game?
Yeah, I guess maybe that's not what I was thinking of. I was thinking like symbology, honestly, because I know that's a common complaint with, you're newer to a game and you're trying to figure out what means what. Modern art, all you got to know are the different auctions, and we got a cheat sheet there, and there's only 5 different auctions, whereas when we go into Raw, we'll talk more about the symbology.
And I think along with possibly redoing the shields, they should put the cheat on the back of that shield of all the different types of auctions, because thankfully Chris made those for us, and we all had them. We all kept referencing them because you don't really know the symbology on them.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to see a good player shield example and you're just out there listening to this podcast, you should go play Search for Planet X. Has one of the best player shields I've ever had in a game. And it does exactly what Daniela said. Has like all the little codes, all the little cool stuff on the back, so you never have to look at anything. It's cool.
Another frustration I had was there was no way really to keep track of how many of each painting is sold. So we touched on it earlier. When the 5th painting from a particular artist is offered, that's when the round ends. And there's no real way to keep track of that other than to try to count them up in front of people. So we ended up using dice the last time that we played that to try to at least show the number. I'm not sure how well that worked for someone that wasn't sitting right in front of it. But I thought there should have been something to help people understand where we at for each one of the games. So that was one of my frustrations for the game.
No, I think the dice worked. I sat complete opposite corner of the table from you, and I was able to see how many paintings got sold. So that was a good idea.
Yeah, and to piggyback off what Chris was saying, I think the other frustration I would have is just how many cards of each color there are, because there's not equal amounts. And so knowing that, hey, there might be 20 red paintings, but only 8, or 10 yellow paintings. If you're trying to maybe count in your head how many paintings are going around, you can kind of maybe play a little bit more odds on, can this person actually end it or not? But they never, ever say that. I think I always ask you every time we play, Chris, I'm like, how many of this, this guy or how many is that guy? Because I can never remember what the player count is. So,
and I know
it's in the rule book.
I know in the last round you were selling whoever it was on the green paintings, but you were like, hey guys, green paintings haven't sold yet. I know you're kind of just trying to get us to spend our money, but you weren't wrong. We really hadn't sold a bunch of green paintings throughout the game yet. So you mentioning and just kind of keeping track, hey, this might actually be worth a value for this round. It didn't end up being that, but it kind of goes along with what
exactly,
you're referring to.
Yeah, the last frustration I had, I don't know if it's a frustration, but we talked a little bit about it when we played. There is a card in the deck that is a little bit, I'll just call it pornographic. It was totally unnecessary to be in the game, but it's there. So I'm not sure if that was on purpose or not. But it's not only in a card, it's on the scoreboard as well. And most of the times I played it, I never saw it. But once I saw it, you can't unsee it. It's just there. And I just thought it didn't need to be there. And it would maybe say, hey, I might not bring that out if I got kids at the table because I don't want them to see that.
Yeah, especially for ages 10 up. Yeah. I wouldn't even, I'm in my 30s. I wouldn't bring that out in front of my parents. It's like that when you're sitting on the couch and that scene comes on and you're like, oh,
this has clearly been, reviewed, play tested, edited, all that good stuff. So you say whether it's intentional or not. I don't know that it was intentional, but it obviously wasn't missed. I can't imagine that it was missed. So it was decided to be kept for some reason, and I don't know what the reason is.
Yeah, I've seen people say, hey, it's art, that's just what it is, but it wasn't necessary in the game.
Yeah. Who knows? Okay, for those of you that have heard our discussion about modern art and you're interested in grabbing this deal, David, would you like to tell them how much they can get this for?
Oh, man, this is a hard one. So at the timing of this episode that we're taping right now, it is actually no longer available on Amazon. So you can't even find it there. If you try to look for it, good luck. Right now, the last copy that sold on eBay, the version that we're playing, it sold for $80 yesterday, plus shipping. So you're at $95 by the time it gets to your house. I will say Chris got a great deal because I know what Chris paid for his, and it wasn't near anywhere that. I also will say, I was on Facebook Marketplace just kind of doing some stuff for the show. I saw a guy selling a copy for about $35. So you can find it still, but I would say, definitely go to more of like your BGG guilds, your BGG stuff where you can find it, or your Facebook Marketplace local to you, and ask if somebody has a copy, because there's probably somebody out there that has a copy. And if you put out there, ISS, you're in search of something, you'll probably have somebody that will sell it to you for hopefully cheaper than what you can find right now, because right now the prices are high for some reason on this game. So it's weird because me and Chris talked about it. It like comes in and out of print. It's like, I don't know if they do this on purpose, but sometimes it's really easy to find. Sometimes it's really hard to find. So
yeah, this is a weird one. And I'll give another shout out to Shuffler's Den. That's where I bought this. I got it for $30. It was a great deal at a local store. And so they won my business.
Yeah. And so as far as value, just to go with price, I like to try to sometimes get value for it. It was a 60-minute game for us. Both times we played it took us about an hour and 15 minutes. It says 60 minutes on the box. But to me, it didn't really feel like we were there for an hour and 15 minutes. I felt like the game played really well. So to me, I think there's definitely a lot of value here, and something that I think this group, we really like to play. So just because even if you don't win, it's pretty fun experience as far as that goes.
Except for Daniela.
Except for Daniela. The noob,
I'm super salty about this. That's last game.
All right, it is time for thumbs up or thumbs down. If we feel like Modern Art played well at a player count of 5, we'll give it a thumbs up. But if we don't feel like that it played well at 5, then we'll give it a thumbs down. Chris, I'll start with you. What are you giving Modern Art?
Yeah, I've never actually played this at 4. I've played it at both 3 and 5. I liked it better at 5 than at 3. I think there was, again, that maybe a little more difficult dynamic, harder to control the market. I've enjoyed it every time we've played it at 5. It definitely gets a thumbs up from me.
I think at 5, I'm going to get it a thumbs down because I would like it to be a little tighter. But it's not to say that I don't like the game. I just, at 5 players, I'm going to give it a thumbs down.
Yeah, to me on this one, it's a definite thumbs up. I don't think, like I said, I played it with Chris with 3 that one time at Origins. I don't think it was nearly as fun as when we played with 5. I actually wish it went to 6, to be honest with you. I think maybe even one more person would make the auctions just maybe a little bit more dynamic. But I did definitely like that 5.
I'm going to give this one a thumbs up at 5 players. It's just a lot of fun to play with your friends, cracking jokes, laughing. I give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say the same thing. I'm going to give Modern Art a thumbs up, just simply from the social aspect. The more people you have at the table, probably the better time you're going to have. It sounds like Modern Art received 4 thumbs up and 1 thumbs down. 40 million going once, going twice. Sold! Stick around and join us as we head on over to the Nile River.
Ra is an auction game where you represent a line of ancient Egyptian kings working to maintain the balance and harmony of life by improving the culture, strengthening your royal lineage, and following the guidance of the gods. The game centers around a bag filled with 180 tiles that players remove one by one, adding them to the lot for the next auction. On their turn, rather than drawing a tile, a player may choose to invoke Ra, at which point the current lot of tiles is auctioned to the highest bidder. An auction may also be triggered if one of 30 Ra tiles are drawn, or if the current lot reaches a size of 8 tiles. Players start each round or epoch with 3 sun tiles, each labeled with a number between 1 and 16. These sun tiles represent the values that a player can bid, and when an auction is won, the winning sun tile is added to the next auction lot. The tiles that a player wins can score points in a variety of ways depending on the type of tile. Golden flood tiles score based on the number collected, but flood tiles also serve as a multiplier for any river tiles collected. Civilization tiles score based on how many different types you've amassed, unless you have none, in which case you actually lose points. Pharaoh tiles award points to the player who has collected the most and penalize the player who has collected the least. Monument tiles, which unlike the other tiles only score at the end of the game rather than at the end of each epoch, earn points both for having multiples of the same type as well as for having a diversity of different types. Finally, there are god tiles, which can be used to take a single tile from the current lot, and disaster tiles, which cause the winning bidder to actually lose tiles from their collection. At the end of 3 epochs, the player who has amassed the most points wins the game and moves on to the Field of Reeds in the afterlife. Ra was designed by Reiner Knizia and was first published in 1999.
Thank you, Chris. As we go into the discussion of Ra, I want to point out the obvious that this is a bidding game, and I absolutely love bidding games. I can't tell you a single bidding game that I've ever played, and I did not enjoy it. One thing specifically with Ra, though, that's pretty unique is that what Chris already mentioned was the sun tiles are the values that you can bid with, and once you've bid with a certain amount, let's say 12, and you win that bid, you're going to turn in that 12 and you're going to grab the sun that's already in the middle. So sometimes you're bidding with a really high number, but you're kind of sacrificing. And now for the next round, you might have a pretty low number. I think that's what makes this game pretty unique and pretty cool.
Yeah, so you've got to remember when you're bidding on the tiles, you're also winning the presented auction number. The last person bet to use in your next epoch, in the next round. So you're getting all the tiles on the board, but if there's like a 2 up there, you're going to be like, well, now that 2 up there makes this whole treasure trove of tiles a little less desirable because now I'm going to be stuck with a really low bidding number next round.
Which, if you play correctly, you may end up, getting a whole pool of things. If you're the last person or the second to last person, you still might outbid someone with that 2, which is rare. But if you play it correctly and, the tiles are in your favor, you could get a pretty nice set of tiles for just the value of 2. But I know, Emily, when we played this game, I think you had mentioned that your strategy was simply looking at the center sun tile value, and you were bidding just for that for the next round.
Okay, look. Guys, in this game, there's a lot to look at. There's a ton of symbology. The symbology for me is incredibly complex. I can't just look at a slew of tiles and be like, okay, so this is going to be worth this much. This is going to be worth this much. I have this already, so I need that. So yeah, I'm kind of looking at the tiles, and but I'm also looking at that number to see if that I want it. And then I'll like win all these big numbers to bet with next round, and then I'll still not know what to spend it on.
Yeah, so you had a bunch of, and I don't think it worked in your favor because most of the end of the round, you didn't really have any tiles. You had maybe high bidding sun tiles, but you weren't collecting sets.
I think at least once you bid on just the sun tile.
Yeah.
Like a raw tile came out and you're like, I'm going to make that switch.
I was like, well, I have a low tile and that's a little bit bigger number. I'll take it.
It is an interesting dynamic though, because if there's only a couple tiles out for auction, then maybe, okay, I'm only bidding on that if it's a big sun tile. And then that becomes less and less important, maybe the more tiles that are in there. And so it's interesting how the value of that sun tile, to me, diminishes the more tiles get out there.
Yeah, I think to that point, strategy-wise, I was waiting for a lot of floods and rivers that just did not come when it was my turn or when I needed them the most. So strategy-wise, I had to change a few times during the game of what I was going for and then just look for opportunity. So I think that's one of the things with this game is you can start off with going, I'm going to do, the agriculture and floods and rivers and kings and things like that, or pharaohs and things like that. You could start off with a good idea, but it could change round 4, round 8, round whatever we end up going through. So I like that aspect of it. I think it really taught me the last game that we played to be willing and able to change your strategy as you play.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off what Daniela was saying, I've played this game at different player counts. I will say at a 5-player count, you only have 3 bidding tiles. At other player counts, you get more, at least like 4 or 5. And so it is harder to change your strategy in this one with 5 players, meaning that if you're going down a certain path, because you have such limited amount of tiles to actually get a bid in there and try to win, if you're trying to switch later just because of how the tiles stack, I think it is harder to change speed just because you have less agency to do so, because you only have a smaller amount of actions to do. So I think sometimes when I play this game at 5 players, to me personally, it's just really hard because I'm like, okay, I'm going to go down this path, but if it doesn't work out for me, it's almost harder for me to switch, where in other lower player count games, it's easier for me to vary my strategy and go a different way based off what the tiles are.
Okay, I understood that you said it's harder, but don't you think it's necessary to be a little more fluid, or no? Are you saying?
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah, I think you should be more flexible. I'm just saying that I think it's harder when you only have 3 tiles where you can actually bid on, meaning that, sometimes if the tiles don't come up and just the numbers you have, it's a little bit harder.
Yeah, and that's the game of chance, which is interesting in this game too. And I think that's again where I was trying to get the flood and the keepers and the rivers that I wanted to have just did not work because I never got those early on, and so then I just completely ignored them by the time we got through mid game.
Yeah, so you're talking about the chance, and that plays into the bag pulling mechanic in this game. And you do have somewhat of a control. You can choose to stop pulling from the bag and declare raw. And we'll kind of touch base on what that is. But what are people's thoughts around the table in terms of that bag pulling mechanic in this game. Do you guys like it? Do you not like it? Is it kind of just doesn't do anything for you? You're just drawing a tile and putting it in the pool? Or, do you use that bag pulling with your strategy?
I like the bag pulling for this specific game because it is a little bit. It's not like Isle of Cats in the sense of you can look at that and it's out and you can strategize a little longer when you have those out, but it's that quick thinking. So I like that randomized piece of this game.
Yeah, I mean, to me, we played with the Pharaoh edition, so it's a little bit of an upgraded edition compared to other ones. So, every component that we're pulling out of the bag is a nice, healthy, big wood token. And to me, it always just felt great reaching in there, kind of grabbing something that was solid. But I do like bag pullers, kind of like Quacks. To me, Quacks of Quedlinburg's one of my favorites.
I love
so
Quacks.
Yeah, I like the bag pulling aspect as well, and the tiles are great. What I don't like, and I know we're still talking about positives, but since we're on this, what I don't like about this particular version is at the start of the game, when that bag is full of tiles, you can't mix them around. You can't really do anything in there. And so sometimes maybe they're not real randomized. That's a little tough. And just passing that bag around, especially once people kind of get tiles going around, it can be tough getting the tiles to the person that needs to pull them.
When you're saying this edition, what's the opposite?
like a standard edition. So it'd be
Cardboard chits.
Yeah,
Oh,
just
okay.
like in Quacks.
So I had mentioned the choice of continuing to pull from the bag or declaring raw. And I think best moment of this game for me is that power move. I think declaring raw, if you do it correctly, is such a power move. And it plays into what you referred to, David, where it's you're the last person to bid if you have the correct tiles or if you have the correct numbers in front of you. And I think if you do it correctly, oh boy, you're really gonna be powerful in this game. And I really love that.
Yeah, I would agree with what Emerson says. Kind of like what Emily was saying earlier, like with this edition, when you slam that raw thing on the table, the first time we played it a couple months ago, we were playing on this wood table, and every time we would slam it down, Emerson was having like a hemorrhage with his hearing. So, I got a player mat, and so now when we slam it down, it's a little bit more muffled. So, that was just for Emerson, but to save his hearing. But yeah, I mean, you do feel powerful. I do agree that, it's an action that when you do it, not only are you doing a powerful action, you do feel powerful in the game as well because you're kind of controlling what happens on that field. So yeah, I like how those two correspond, not only the physical action of doing it, but also in the game, you're actually doing something that corresponds to that.
Well, you talked about pulling things out of the bag. So there is an aspect about this that I think, David, you were talking about it. You only have so many sun tiles, right? And so you got to make them count. But when you're done and you've bid on 3 auctions, for example, in a 5-player game, you're kind of out. But I think what we tend to do then just sit there and cheer raw before it comes out and just hope that somebody else gets totally screwed over while they're thinking they got it beaten, and you're just sitting there just hoping that again they get kicked in the stomach by because you can't do anything else. So I think that's a pretty cool aspect of the game. Just maybe it's mean, but sitting there hoping for someone else to.
Yeah, I think sometimes when playing this game, a strategy of mine is to hopefully get other people to auction themselves out for that round so that it's just me or less people around the table so that it's, a better chance of getting these better tiles. But then, like you mentioned, pull out a bunch of raw tiles. Well, it didn't really play out in your favor. But speaking of raw tiles, a couple times that when we played this, we pulled a raw tile. You would bid on the sun tile. So what was your thought process on that?
If a raw tile came out right away and before we got any tiles out, you have to enact an auction. So if nobody bets on it, you can just keep going pulling out, but it has to go around for an auction. So sometimes if I have like a 2 on my board and there's like an 8 up there, like that's a good number, I'm going to trade in my 2, take the 8 for next round. That number's out for me, so I didn't get any tiles from it, but also kind of screwing the next person because they'll probably get a lot of good tiles and they'll have to take the 2.
Yeah, and again, that fascinated me when you were doing that because you only get 9 auctions you can win. And again, I don't remember how it worked out, but that was something I wasn't willing to do. And maybe that's that lack of being a gambler for me. I wanted to try to get something, but then inevitably sometimes you get nothing if too many raw tiles come out. So sometimes it might actually pay off.
Yeah, there were a couple times where I think it was either this game or a game that we played before where there's not a lot of people left. There's maybe 2 or 3 people left, but you just pull out so many raw tiles that I was looking at my board and I still had 2 sun tiles that I hadn't even used. So it just went to waste. So that was a frustration of mine because I'm like, okay, well, now I'm really out. I'm kind of SOL at that point.
Yeah, for me too. I think a little more of a frustration was turn order for me because I think Chris, I can't remember how we were sitting quite at that game, but I think Chris was ahead of me and you kept invoking raw to where I just couldn't. You know, there were certain times where you kept saying, "Oh, Emerson, you're always taking the thing that I want," type of thing. And for me, that last game we played, it wasn't that it was not fun. I don't think I ever invoked it once. So that's tough.
Yeah, I think in one game I was, for whatever reason, I can't remember why, but I was invoking raw quite often. I think I was trying to force other people to do something.
So kind of talking about how you score points after each round. If you had at least 1 civilization tile, you were safe from deducting points. But if you did not win a civilization tile for your board for that round, it's tough. You're losing 5 points right there. It is what it is. And I think for me, with this bag pulling, you don't know what you're going to be pulling out. And there were some times where not a single civilization tile was pulled, or maybe only a few, but you just weren't able to bid on it quick enough to win it. So that is a little bit of a frustration of mine, but that's just the name of the game.
Yeah, it sucks in a 5-player game where you it's your turn and there's 2 really good tiles out. And you're like, well, I don't want to waste one of my numbers for that. I'm going to try and get it to go around again, and maybe I can get it next time. And then, if there's 2 tiles down there, it's not going to make it back to you.
Yeah.
And that's where I kept getting the carpet pulled out from under me when Chris kept invoking it. Or, again, the flood and river tiles, I was looking for a lot. I don't think I ended up with maybe 1 flood tile, which is.
So now I know who keeps kicking me under the table. Then.
Yeah, Chris has it in for you, man. I will say another positive really quick before I think some of us want to jump into their frustrations. To me, the artwork is done by Ian O'Toole, and I personally like a lot of the games that he does. And so I just want to give a quick shout out just because a lot of times I'm interested in a game just because he's doing the artwork. And I know he's one of the more prolific artists in the board gaming community that does artwork. He does like On Mars. He does a lot of other ones too. Like Voidfall that just came out, but I think his artwork's really cool. I'm always interested in whatever the game is because I connect with that artwork. So to me, that was definitely a positive with this edition of the game.
Yeah, I've always loved Egyptian art, hieroglyphics, all that kind of stuff. I think it's really nice.
I'm fascinated by the whole Egyptian culture, and so it's cool to me too. We've talked about theme in the past, and again, I said it doesn't really pull me in. I can live with or without theme, but this is one that I really do enjoy. I think the tiles themselves, you pull out a tile, you can tell what type it is really quickly, but the monument tiles I thought were terrible with respect to being able to tell, is that a 1, is that a 6, is that an 8? Way too small. I thought I understand why they're doing tick marks to keep a theme, but that was really difficult for me to see. I felt the sunboat marker made it hard to tell where you were at. We had to put the raw tiles up at the top just to be able to keep track of that. I wasn't a fan of the money tokens, but then maybe the biggest one was just there's so many rules, and I felt like maybe there was a little too many rules to balance out and really keep track. And I'm a guy that likes a lot of complexity in a game, but I felt like some of it was just, okay, that's just kind of a weird rule that it didn't necessarily click for me in a lot of cases.
I had trouble keeping track of what tile did what. So a tile would come out with like a palm leaf on top, and I'm like, what is that? Do I need that? The monuments were pretty easy for me to pinpoint because they're bright purple. But yeah, I don't think I ever got a monument because I was like, I don't know. The symbolism on the tiles, like I just could not keep them straight. How many different tiles were there? There was like 6 different types of tile, and that was just hard for me.
Yeah, there's quite a few. I mean, my biggest frustration with the game is that I think there could be a little bit of king making in this game, meaning that, if somebody, if the game's being played and somebody does something and they have it coming towards them and somebody has the opportunity to stop them because they have a larger numbered tile, because some of it is just how the tiles get distributed, but they decide not to. I think sometimes you could have this runaway leader aspect where because somebody didn't play something, even though it is their own move and they can do whatever they want on it, but because they don't do that, sometimes the game, because they didn't do that, you could have somebody get something that maybe they shouldn't have if you played with more players that kind of know how the game is played. And so you could have sometimes where, because somebody isn't playing the game the right way or they just don't care, that it could lead to somebody getting stuff for the value for a lot more than what it can be. So I think sometimes, like, if you look at some of the tables, and I say this about a lot of games, but this one particularly, I think that some of the experiences I've had with this game at a higher player count is that there can be some king making where somebody's like, I could bid for this, but I'm not going to, and that throws off the balance of the game, even though that's the right move, and everybody at the table kind of knows that's the right move to do, but they decide they're not going to do it, and for whatever reason, and then that other player gets stuff that if you played some other way, it wouldn't end up like that. It's more balanced. So sometimes I think the balance could be a little off if players don't play the game how it's supposed to be played, meaning for themselves.
I know sometimes I found myself almost sacrificing a bid. So meaning the person to the left of me called raw. I can look at the board and assume, okay, they really, really want these tiles. And I look at my numbers, I look at their numbers, and I say, okay, well, I'm the only one at this table that could probably outbid this person. I have no use for these tiles, but if I allow the person to my left to get these tiles, they're going to be banking on a lot of points. So now I'm sitting here and I'm saying, don't really want to do this, but, and then I, win this bid, and now I got these tiles that are useless to me, at least for that round. So I think that's kind of a frustration of mine. I think, it kind of goes into the strategic part of this game. There's many, many different things that you can do with this game, but I don't know. Sometimes that happens to me, and I'm just like, I hate this, but I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you hate that, though? Taking points away from them?
Because I just wasted a bid.
No, you
I
didn't.
just wasted a sun tile that I could have used to get tiles that I want.
But it could cause you to win because they don't have those floods, and they need those floods.
Well, it's weighing the pros. It's outweighing, okay, what's going to work in my favor in the long run, and you don't really know. It's part of the gamble.
Or if you're waiting for something specific and you just used your big tile that would win.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It just depends. And
and that's one of my frustrations with the game. Sometimes you're playing for the table and not for yourself. But if you don't do that, the person's just going to walk away. Kind of like our example was somebody had like 10 river cards and they had one flood already. So if they get another one, that's 20 points. They get another one, that's 30 points. So even though you don't want anything because you have no rivers, if you don't play that way, that person's going to run away with it. And so the table, sometimes you're playing for the table and not for yourself. And I think that is a frustration sometimes of this game.
Thank you, David.
I think that's fun.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the game.
You're also the one that bid on sun tiles. So.
No, but I had floods sometimes that were worth 1 point because I didn't get any
and it is a
rivers.
part of the game. I'm just saying that's a frustration from my point, just how that mechanism works.
Yeah.
That's all.
For those of you that have heard our discussion about this game and you are interested in getting this game, David, would you like to tell them how much they can get this game for?
Yeah, so this game used to be really hard to find. It was out of print for a long time, and the copies were going for an exorbitant price on eBay. They recently brought back, this modern 25th century edition that we're playing here now, and there's a lot of copies on the market. So it is something you can get your hands on because a lot of people for a long time wanted to, and they just couldn't. And so right now it's going on Amazon. You can buy a basic version, $50. It'll set you back. If you're going to go for the more deluxe-ified version, like we have kind of on the table, the Pharaoh edition and stuff, it's going to run anywhere between $100, $130. You get, metal coins and all that stuff. But I would say, right now, it says, 45 to 60 minutes of gameplay is what you get out of it. Every time we play the game, we're right at 50 to 60 minutes. So that holds true. If you're looking for just pure value, I think it's there. But again, it depends on how much you like bidding games. I also think you can get an old version of this game now because the prices come way down because a lot of people have bought this new one. So you can get an old copy, probably around $40-$50. So you're still looking a little bit around 50 if you really want to play, but I think you could do something where you can get it around 40 if you're really looking for a deal somewhere out there.
Excellent. And it is time for our thumbs up or thumbs down. If we feel like Raw played well at a player count of 5, we'll give it a thumbs up. But if we feel that Raw did not play well at player count of 5, we'll give it a thumbs down. Emily, I'll start with you. What are you giving Raw?
As much as I love this game, I'm going to give it a thumbs down at 5 players, just because once you're out of the auctioning, you're kind of just sitting there watching everybody else have fun and kind of waiting to get back into the game. So for that, I'll give it a thumbs down.
Yeah, this one's tough. I love auction bidding games. For me, I'm also giving this a thumbs down at a 5-player count. I played this at a lot of different player counts. I actually like it at a lower player count, like a 3-player count, just because you get more auction items. I think it's a little bit tighter. You have more control of what you're doing, and I don't think the game plays itself as well. You just have more control over what you're doing. So to me, I'm giving it a thumbs down at 5.
I agree. I'm going to give this a thumbs down. I like it a little bit tighter, a little bit more able to manipulate for myself and get some better movements for myself. So,
Emerson, I think it's going to be like you invoked Raw, and it came back around to you because I'm going to give it a thumbs down too. And so nobody's bid on this. I agree. I just don't think I have enough. I don't mind randomness coming at me as long as I have a way to mitigate it. And I just don't feel like I have enough control over this game. Maybe it will be different at a lower player count, but this is tough for me at 5.
Gonna go ahead and give this game a thumbs down as well, only because I feel like when we played it at a 4-player count, you experienced bag pulling by yourself a lot more. And I like that fun gem, if you want to call it, in that game. And I don't think it happened once when we played it at 5. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and give this game a thumbs down. You heard it here, folks. We do not have a Fifth Meeple seal of approval for 5 thumbs down, but all 5 of us gave this game a thumbs down just because we don't feel that this game plays the best at 5. But stick around. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be putting our 2 games head-to-head in our Battle of the Funnest. Alrighty, everyone. The moment of truth has arrived. It's time to separate the men from the boys, or more appropriately, the games from the toys. We're going to put these 2 games head-to-head for the ultimate face-off. In one corner, standing at a 7.5 overall rating with a weight of 2.29 on BGG are your brokers, Modern Art. And in the other corner, standing with a 7.6 rating and weighing in at 2.34 on BGG is the Eye of Horus, Raw. Let's find out which one is the last game standing in this Battle of the Funnest showdown. Okay, guys, you walk into a room and you see 2 groups of people playing 2 different games. You may want to play them both, but you only have time for one more. Which table are you walking towards and why? Chris, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so we did give a lot of thumbs down to Raw, but that was at 5. And to me, now we're looking at the games in general, not necessarily at 5. So it is still a challenge for me. Before I make my pick, though, I do want to point out both of these games are by the same designer, Reiner Knizia. They're part of his auction trilogy. Medici is a 3rd game, and just an opportunity to give a shout out to Reiner Knizia. I'm just going to take it. The guy's got like 600 games out there. The fact that we're talking about 2 games of his and having a lot to say about it is amazing. That being said, even though I talked up that, hey, we're not talking about 5 players, etc., I'm still going to go with Modern Art. It's a little challenging to get your mind around it sometimes, but I think that's what makes it fascinating. It's an interesting challenge every time I've played it, and I really like the difference. There's not a lot of games that I've found, at least yet, like that, and I really enjoyed it. So Modern Art for me.
I think I am going to go with Raw. I like the overall theme, the art, the bag pulling, the just the challenge of this game. Again, probably at a lower count, but overall I enjoy that game, I think, much more.
You know, this one's really challenging. I might cheat a little bit, so if I do, you can call me out and bring it back over to me later. If that table has 3 players, I'm playing Raw. But if that table has 5 players, I'm going to Modern Art. So that's why it's really hard, because I really think it depends on player count in this case, because I don't really want to play Modern Art at 3. And I would always play Raw at 3. But if it's 5, I'm always walking toward Modern Art. So like I said, if you have to bring it back to me, you can, but I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to say that for right now. So I hope that's okay with this group.
Yeah, we're coming back to you. Coming back to you, regardless.
Only to break a tie.
Got to pick one, man.
Well, how full's the table?
You don't know yet.
You just
You got to walk
one
to
you
a
think is
table.
more
You
fun.
don't know how many's going to be there.
Which, at its core, which
Okay,
one
fine.
do you enjoy more?
I'll go with Modern Art. I say that with a grain of salt.
I was going to say.
Has to have 5 people, though.
I'm going with Modern Art. I had a ton of fun playing that one just because I didn't like the artwork a whole ton. Didn't draw back from how much I enjoyed that one.
All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose Raw. I like both games. I like Modern Art and Raw equally. But as I'm talking with the group, I'm saying if I'm not in a social mood and I don't want to, or maybe I'm just not in a creative mood for whatever reason, I'm going to go with Raw because, you need to be awake and you need to really be there for Modern Art, I think, to really enjoy it at its core. But for Raw, I think it's just completely different. But really, I love both games. But for this, I'm going to go ahead and choose raw. You heard it here, folks. Modern art wins with a 3-2 score. And that is going to bring this episode to an end, folks. If you liked what you just heard and want to hear more, do me a favor, if you haven't already, hit that like button and stay tuned for our next episode. Your views and your support make this podcast possible, so please continue to share and tell your friends and family. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep gaming. Goodbye, everyone.
What?
Can you move closer?
I feel like I am.
You're squeaking.
Sorry.
Okay.
You're squeaking.
Well, because I moved. Okay.
Thank you, Chris. So, with this...
You're welcome, Emerson.
Rounds?
Phase.
Yeah, thank you.
So much so that nobody gives a crap. Yeah, I would bang it. Whoa, that is.
Yeah.
Cut that
You
out.
tap that.
Where's that
I'd tap
spear?
that gavel.
I had it in my mind, but then I forgot because
Player
Chris
shield.
said bang it.
Well, if we're playing, if Chris is the last
so it's a player
pro,
shield.
that was my only con. My only con for this game was that I put the gavel is pretty dinky. In Raw, we had a lot of fun banging that Raw statue.
Not into that.
This is also the gavel.
I don't think you should add that.
I
That's
don't-
great.
Thank God for that.
I don't know what kind of fetish that is, but I'm not into it.
I missed it.
You said we really enjoyed banging the Raw statue.
In Raw, we had a lot of fun banging the Raw statue.
That's a direct quote.
We have it
Put
in
it
here
on
twice, so you
BG.
can't take it out.
So we'll agree to disagree. I like the gavel. You didn't like it.
I like the shape of it. It looks like a real gavel. It's not big enough.
Yeah.
It's not meaty enough.
We could go on forever on
Yeah,
this.
You
we
hear
could.
this for the
Okay.
next edition. We need a bigger gavel. Okay,
It's pretty hard.
come on now.
We can edit it in later if it's not fully
Yeah.
there.
No, it's okay.
Frustrations.
Well, now that the flow has officially been broken, does anybody else have frustrations? Does anybody else feel that way?
Thanks, Emerson.
Thank you, Emerson.
Okay. I mean, I can elaborate,
No,
but
I'll go off of it.
Yeah.
David likes to reach for wood, is what I heard from that.
In a bag. Feel around.
Grab onto something solid. Yeah, I like the idea of pulling something out. Oh my god.
Good. So,
What do you mean?
are you good, Daniela?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you were thinking or like adding to that or not.
I think it's really nice. Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
I myself am.
Okay, so one last thing that I kind of wanted to share with the group is that, so the God tile has the Eye of Horus symbol, and after doing a little bit of research, came across a fun fact, and you can decide whether it's true or not. I know Emily has her thoughts on this already, but it's said that the Eye of Horus, if you look at a sagittal view of the brain, it actually matches up with our brainstem in terms of our senses. So here you have it, just the brain, and you can kind of see this would be the eyebrow, the eyeball, the J-looking thing, and then the stem. But now we're going to look and we're going to see it actually there. So what are your thoughts on that? I thought that was kind of a cool thing.
I think the Egyptians were probably super progressive in science, and I think they probably opened up bodies and sliced and diced and maybe saw it. And so maybe it could have been some type of scientific thing that they came across.
The Egyptians put no value in the brain, though. They used to, when they mummified people, they would throw the brain out as like a useless organ because they thought all your thoughts, all your feelings, your soul, your essence lived in your heart. So they would be really careful about preserving the heart. Yeah, they pulled the brain out piece by piece out of the nose. So how did they ever get a full brain to biopsy?
Crack some skulls of the enemy.
David, Chris, what were your thoughts on this?
My thought is that's a nice little story, but I don't buy it.
See?
Okay.
So I think it's fascinating. I wouldn't put it by the Egyptians to have done some dissection, and because I think they were able to do some things, which tells me, some things that you're like, how did they do that 5,000
We
years
still
ago?
don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
They were exploring more than maybe we realize. That might be a little bit pushing it, but who knows? That there's a whole lot about that civilization we just don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I don't do bodies. I don't. It just grosses me out every time I think about
Let
it.
me get this away from you then.
I'm just saying, like, why would they make, like, what symbol is that?
It's the Eye of Horus. I
A
don't
symbol of their god and the human brain. The brain was nothing to them.
I think you can find symbology in anything if you look hard enough. Like,
I mean, yeah,
Pareidolia.
I don't disagree. I just, for me personally, I know that whenever we're talking about space and I say, oh, I hate space, I don't care about space, but then I say I really like aliens. When I looked at this, brought me to think of the show Ancient Aliens.
I love that show.
Yeah.
That is something that I'm sure that they've talked about in an episode. So I thought that, I don't
We
know.
got to
So that
get
was a-
Giorgio
Have
on
they
here.
taken the Eye of Horus and put it over top of like the alien head, the crystal skull shape, or anything like that?
No. I'm just saying Ancient Aliens, in that show, they're talking more of progressive discoveries way back when, and they're trying to figure out, even like huge structures that they built way back when. They didn't even have the tools to do it. They didn't have the resources to do it. But how did they still manage to do it?
well, they had nations of slaves.
No.
With copper chisels, though. You can't build a
Yeah,
pyramid
but
with a copper chisel.
Every time
I think we've changed to a
people's-
different podcast.
Yeah.
I know.
But that's okay. I was being serious. That I know there's a lot of alien theories about, well, how did the ancient Egyptians and the Mayans and Aztecs, whoever, figure out all the things they did? And then you look at, well, this statue looks an awful lot like this statue in a
Yeah.
completely different civilization.
Yeah.
And that's why I was asking, well, hey, did anybody say, well, maybe this is actually shaped like what the head of one of their aliens might look like?
Yeah, I don't know. But it's just, for those of you that care, they just believe that all the knowledge is kind of coming from,
Outside sources.
outside sources.
I can't wait to check the mailbox this week.
We just got
Giorgio,
a letter.
Yeah,
hit
I'm
us
gonna
up.
get so many great emails. I
know.
can see it now. Excellent.
Yeah, if the History Channel and Giorgio Tsoukalos wants to sponsor us, that'd be great.
Hey, Georgie.
Do you guys know who Giorgio Tsoukalos
No.
is?
He's an
He's the
alien guy.
meme.
Yeah, you would know him
Oh,
if you
with
saw
the
him.
crazy hair.
Yeah. When I grow my hair out, it kind of looks like that.
I was going to say more, but I'm just going to stop there.
I went on for an hour and a half on my.
I know you did.
can
That's
say
why
it.
I gotta
just
keep
like
mine
that rabbit
short.
card. I'm sure.
I have no idea what I'm choosing. I like both of them.
Well, I know like both of them. I got to pick one.
It's just, I think it really depends.
Which one do you want to
Well,
see?
there's
get
three
knocked
people at
out
Modern
cold?
Art.
I know, but I know Raw it doesn't really have a social. It's this. If I'm not in a social mood, I'm not going to do modern art. I don't want to talk to. Not that I don't want to talk to people, but if I'm not in a creative
Yeah, you're
mood,
not going to kibitz about artwork with them.
yeah. So I guess Raw. I don't know.
Let's go, rally. Because we're not trying to sell that hoochie art.
You just like Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga would play rah, rah, rah.
Emerson, I was doodling
Okay.
during today, and I feel like my doodle kind of looks like the human brain.
Shut your
Do you think there's anything associated with that?
Chris, I think that's an alphabet. That's in
Is
modern.
it?
That's an ancient alphabet.
That could be. Doesn't that kind of look like the?
Was the Invisible Man who
Yeah,
drew that
yeah,
too?
I see that, yeah.
Invisible man.
Did Giorgio
my.
draw that?
Anyway.